Sophia Rose Shafie. She's visiting assistant professor of Islamic studies at the Iliff, did I pronounce that right? Iliff School of Theology in Denver. And I would have said, actually, I should have highlighted before, theology seems to be also an underlying current of these papers. She teaches courses there on comparative religion and Islam. She holds a BA and an MA in art history and archaeology, an MTS in ethics and theology, and a PhD in religion and social change. And she is going to speak to us today on Every Torn Piece of My Heart Becomes a Green Meadow, the history and religious function of Aineh-Kari in Persianate architecture. Please join me in welcoming her.
Well, this is really fun for me because I usually go to religious studies conferences where I talk about, Talal Asad and J.Z. Smith. So this is a great change for me. Let's see if I can get this going. So the presence of Aineh-Kari mirror work in Persian architecture is widespread. Found in homes, palaces, pavilions, and shrines across Iran, it is also found in Persianate dynastic and religious architecture in Iraq, Syria, and the Indian subcontinent. The mirror is an important object in Persian culture. When a family moves into a new home, two objects are placed inside the house before all others, a Quran and a mirror. The mirror is used during the Persian New Year's festival, a Zoroastrian tradition that predates Islam by many centuries. Mirrors and water are often found together in gardens and palaces. The mirror is a popular theme in Persian Sufi poetry, inspired by the hadith that describes the human heart as a mirror of the divine. According to tradition, the prophet said, "For everything a means of polishing it and freeing it from rust. One thing alone polishes the heart, namely the remembrance of God." Dhikr Allah. Despite the overwhelming number of examples of this form of architectural decoration, few studies on the subject have been produced in English. While it is believed that mirror work originated in the Safavid period and is certainly found in many Qajar-era buildings, it is likely that the use of mirror work in Persia predates Islam by several centuries. Excavations in several Iranian provinces, including Daghman, Shush, and Fars, have uncovered bronze mirrors dating to 1,000 years before the Common Era. There are also references to a pre-Islamic mirrored palace that I have not been able to determine yet. In addition to the origins of Aineh-Kari, there are also questions surrounding its role in religious contemplation, which I'll be talking about today. Even non-religious structures where mirror work is used, such as the palaces and forts of Iran and Mughal India, elicit visions of paradise. In the Chatel Satoon in Isfahan and Rang Mahal in India, mirror work is placed usually by a body of water, a reflecting pool in the first case, the Jamuna River in the second, to create a shimmering display of refracted light, an effect that has been described as heavenly by many observers. Persian mirror work was first used in 1544 at Shah Tahmasp Palace Chahel Satoon in the former Safavid capital of Qazvin, not to be confused with Shah Abbas's palace of the same name in Isfahan, which was built nearly a century later and also contains Aineh-Kari. The capital was moved to from Qazvin to Isfahan in 1598, and to this day, many examples of mirror work exist in Isfahan. According to Chardin, over 100 palaces in the city were adorned with mirrors. The first known case of Aineh-Kari appearing in a shrine is at the tomb of Imam Reza at Qom, which took place during the reign of Nasr al-Din Shah, managed under Azadolmolk under the order of Mirza Muhammad Sadiq Qaim Maqam in 1897. The shrine of Hazrat Abdul Azim, a descendant of Imam Hassan's, was also decorated with mirror work during this period. A survey of Imamzadeh in Iran has not been completed, so it is difficult to determine exactly when mirror work was added to all of the tombs and shrines within the country. The addition of mirror work to shrines outside of Iran, such as in the cases of Sayyida Zainab and Sayyida Ruqayya, is tied to the Assad regime's interest in promoting Shia cultural sites. Debate among scholars surrounds the sources of glass used in Iran during the 19th century, a period that witnessed a number of projects featuring mirror work. The long history of glass and mirror production in the region argues against a foreign source before the 19th century. By the 7th century, Hamadan in Iran was one of the most important centers of mirror production, to be surpassed by Khorasan and Sistan in the 10th and 11th centuries. In most cases, we simply do not know where the glass used in Aineh-Kari was produced. Some of the glass used in mirror work in the 19th century has been determined to be German. However, it was coated with mercury and transformed into mirrors by Iranians. According to one Persian study, the glass used in 19th century mirror work came from both Germany and inside Iran. In the Indian context, one of the names for mirror work is a cognate of the former name of Aleppo, a city known for its glass production, suggesting that glass used in Mughal architecture came from present-day Syria, not Europe. The claim made by European travelers during the 17th and 18th centuries that mirror work was inspired by imported European glass broken in transit is an interesting one. Mirror work is organized into mosaic patterns, complex geometrical shapes that form a seemingly endless series of repeating triangles, stars, and other motifs. It seems unlikely that the inspiration for these forms is European in origin. Islamic architecture has featured the mosaic since the medieval period, in disparate locations from North Africa to Persia. In Safavid mirror work, the styles and techniques came from Islamic tile work, and this has been determined by Iranian scholars. After it is cut and arranged into patterns, Aineh-Kari is set into stucco and less commonly wood. Within Islamic hermeneutics, geometrical forms, the units of geometric expression, are religious. This symbolic system is known as ilm-i-adad and establishes the principles for other sciences beyond geometry. Mirror work in non-religious settings, homes, palaces, and pavilions, is noticeably different from that found in shrines in one aspect. The size of the mirror pieces used in Aineh-Kari, and this is what most of my paper focuses on. In the former, we find larger pieces, which are often so large that one can see one's reflection, as in the Chehel Satun in Isfahan. Large mirrors often accent the more intricate mirror work in these settings, especially in work from the Qajar period, of which the city of Tehran hosts several examples. One European traveler described the summer palace of Suleymaniye as decorated in the usual style of Persian taste, with looking glasses covering the walls and ceilings, with paintings of damsels of Europe and Persia were interspersed, and they were all scantily attired. Obviously, images of this nature are not found in a shrine, and I turn to these examples next. The impression made by mirror mosaics found in Imamzadeh and Ziyarat Moghadas, the tombs of the Imams and other relatives of the Prophet, is radically different. Small pieces of mirrors adorn the ceilings and walls of the haram, the inner sanctum of the shrine where the tomb is located, as well as the porches called ravags. The mirror work takes on the appearance of broken glass that can only be described as shattered. In the shrines of the Ahl-al-Bayt, relatives of the Prophet Muhammad, that include close relatives, his grandsons Hassan and Hussein, as well as female relatives, including Sayyida Zainab and Sayyida Ruqayya, as well as the more distant offspring, the later of the 12 Imams, or some of these individuals, the mirror mosaics take on a radically different appearance. In these cases, the pieces are much smaller and are placed in complex geometrical patterns that compose many different shapes and forms, and there are religious reasons for this. According to Shia tradition, it is undesirable to look at one's own image while in a state of religious contemplation, an idea rooted in the concept of aqla, or knowledge. According to the 7th Imam, Musa al-Kazim, aqla is a faculty for apprehending the divine, a faculty of metaphysical perception, a light, or nur, located in the heart. Ayatollah Khomeini also issued an opinion on this question, and this is what he wrote in his opinion. If the mirror is such that during prayer an individual can see him or herself and it occupies his thoughts, it is better for him or her to remove the mirror or to cover it during prayer. In addition to this makruh or preferred rule against being distracted during prayer, there is reportedly a mystical teaching, a shirk kafi, on the problem. The tradition of visiting the tombs of the Imams appears also to be influenced by the Hajj and its rituals, including the kissing of the Kaaba. The Iranian religious scholar Muhammad Mahdi al-Kazimi discussed this in his work, comparing the Imams with the Prophet, and this is what he wrote. In the Quranic text and in the Sunni and Shia traditions, the Imams are undoubtedly like the Prophet. Their visitation is like the visitation of the Prophet, and the visitation of the Prophet is like the visitation of the Imams. One place these traditions mirror each other is in the Kaaba and in the Shia mazar, or tomb. Shia believers are permitted to kiss the tombs of the Imams just as pilgrims kiss the Kaaba. While in the state of ihram during Hajj, and this is the interesting part, pilgrims are not supposed to look at their reflection in a mirror, which may suggest that this tradition has been transferred to the visitation of Shia shrines. The geometrical ordering of mirror work is intentional. Each unit reveals a particular facet of the divine, and in some cases, multiple symbols express a Quranic narrative, an extra-canonical tale, and a quality of the holy person buried in the tomb. For instance, we have the 8-pointed star, the Khatam, and this is a sign of the Hamalat al-Arsh, Allah's throne carried by 8 angels. The popularity of the 8-pointed star at Imam Reza's shrine also serves as a reminder of the one buried within the tomb, Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, the 8th Imam. The Khatam is also a sign of the Prophet, as the Khatam an-Nabiyyin, the seal of prophethood. In the stories of the friends of God, Khatam is the name given to the heavenly sphere closest to Allah. This realm, known as the seal of friendship, is also called the singular one, Munfarid or Mufrad, suggesting that 8 is a number closely associated with the divine and reinforcing the strength of the symbolism of 8-sided objects. 12 is also an auspicious number, and the 12-pointed star is found at many Shia shrines symbolizing the Imamate, as is the 6-pointed star. Ayat al-Nur, the verse of light, is one of the most beautiful ayats from the Quran, signifying both divine light and the receptacle of that light, the Prophet. It is not accidental that mirror work is a device that projects, refracts, and emanates light. Ayat al-Nur is commonly found on glasswork, architecture, and other Islamic art forms. It is, as one Iranian Ayatollah told me, a suitable verse for understanding Aineh-Kari. The meaning of al-Nur is mutashahibat, one of the esoteric verses in the Quran. According to one analysis of the verse, a Shia analysis, the lamp is the Prophet's heart and the glass his breast. The symbolism of light in Islamic thought cannot be emphasized too strongly. It is so prominent that Sohrawardi founded an entire school of philosophy called Ishraq that focuses solely on illumination and the symbolism of divine light. According to Sohrawardi, light is an expression of both the divine breath, Ruh al-Qutud, and the Muhammadan spirit, Ruh-i Muhammadi. This divine light, called Nur-i Isbabudiya, was deposited in the Prophet's heart. And according to the Irfani, that's the Shia mystical tradition, it has been passed on to his relatives, to Imam Ali and then Imam to Imam. Depictions of the Prophet often show a light emanating from his face, an artistic device that obscures his features, but that also expresses the Nuri Muhammad, the divine grace that Allah deposited in the Prophet, as noted in the verse of light. Nur Muhammad is a popular image in the traditions surrounding the Prophet's life, and I'm going to skip over some of those traditions, show you this image. But a few of them are his face glowed like a full moon, his light outshined the sun, light surrounded his head while he prayed. Ali and Fatima's progeny, including the 12 Imams, 11 of which have mazars, of course the 12th Imam obviously doesn't have a mazar, all possess al-Nur. Shias believe that the family of the Prophet are representatives of divine light, a belief that originates in a Shia exegesis of Ayat al-Nur and extra-Quranic Shia traditions. One narrative claims divine light was bestowed on the Prophet, his daughter Fatima, and his cousin and son-in-law Ali. And this is what this says. When Allah created paradise, he created it from the light of his face. Then he took the light and dispersed it. 1/3 hit Muhammad, 1/3 hit Fatima, and another third hit Ali. Traditions associated with the Imams often refer to the light they possessed, emanated, or created. And there's this idea of a column of light, Amud min Nur, that accompanies the birth of the Imam, and there's some other traditions that have to do with that column and the dispensation of knowledge. So in terms of the mazar, what the idea is in Shi'a Islam is that even in death, divine light is passed on to those who visit the Imam's grave. So this belief is based on the idea that the Imam is a mediator between the Shia, Prophet Muhammad, and Allah. In Islamic thought, the heart is often likened to a mirror, which must be polished through religious contemplation, or else it rusts and becomes dark. Prayer, including the supplications one performs at a tomb or mazar, surrounded by Aineh-Kari, is one way to polish the heart. In the context of the mazar, the polishing of the heart also involves the baraka contained within the tomb, which is present because a member of the Ahl al-Bayt of the Prophet's family is entombed there. So when believers rub and kiss the tomb and when they weep at the loss of a saint, they're expressing love and seeking an intimate relationship with the divine. The mirror work found in shrines is most ornate in the haram, on the walls and ceilings surrounding the mazar, an intentional use of Aineh-Kari that confronts the believer with a dazzling array of light. These reflections should be understood in the context of Nuri Muhammad and the prophetic light endowed on the Shia Imams. According to one Shia tradition, the Prophet's grandfather gifted light to both the Prophet and Ali, as told in this narrative. The Prophet said, "I and Ali were light on Adam's forehead. We wandered from the pure loins into the purified immaculate wombs till we reached the loins of Abd Muttalib. Then the light was divided into two parts. One was transmitted to Abdallah and one part to Abu Talib. I emerged from Abdallah and Ali emerged from Abu Talib." And then there's another interesting part of this. According to Shia tradition, before the creation of Adam, Ali and his family existed as primordial reflections called Aspa or Aspa Nur. So these are these kind of reflected lights. And these shadows of light circled the divine throne, and they were eventually revealed to be Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein. So the reflections created by Aineh-Kari then are both a mirror of the divine as well as symbols of the Aspa, made from light, the one and only substance with which God is identified in the Quran, and that is in chapter 24, verse 35. Thus, the use of mirror work, most probably native to Iran and predating the Muslim faith, has been used as both a spiritual practice and in non-sacred venues, in the former most strikingly in the form of highly ornate mosaics, in the latter, excuse me, as mirrors that even when not broken can recall the devotional practices of the faithful, but can also be a pleasing aesthetic in the wider culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for a very enlightening, dare we say, paper. I'm glad to see that light is such a popular, an ongoing topic. I would just draw one criticism here, I think, and that I think you are conflating mirrors and mirror work. And mirrors existed in the Chinese tradition and across many traditions from the 3rd millennium on. But bronze mirrors are very different from glass mirror work, which really only seems to come in this, at least we have evidence for it only from the 16th century onward.
Right, and I do have, I wasn't able to talk about this in, under 20 minutes, but I do have a lot of studies from Iran that do talk about this, the kind of industry of mirror work, which did go through a short decline, but there is this idea, that mirrors were imported from Europe, and the Iranian scholars contest that, and they have some pretty good resources for that. But what they do say is that the Germans did export mirrors to Iran, but then they were silvered over by Iranian artisans.
Time for two really quick questions, so, okay. Yeah. We have two people lined up, so there we go.
Thank you very much for your paper. I'm wondering about the question of figuration in conjunction with Aineh-Kari or just with mirrors in general. As I think you know, Amir Moitzi has published an article on Qajar mirrors, personal mirrors, whose covers actually have a figural illustration of Imam Ali or Hussein or the Ahl al-Bayt, and he's found a treatise from the 19th century saying that in these personal mirrors you have to contemplate your own reflection so that you can activate your inner imam. So there's also a corpus of texts and images that conjoin figuration with mirror work. And so my question for you is, what kind of difference do you see then in these public shrine settings vis-a-vis the mirrors that have figuration that are also produced in the Qajar period in particular?
Right. So, what I found is that, and I did observe this when I was, in Iran, is that if you're in a non-sacred context, so if you're in a place that is not a mazar where there's a family member of the Prophet buried, the mirror pieces, tend to be quite large, right? When you go into a shrine, into Imamzadeh, Ziyarat, Moghadas, the pieces are very, very small. And the reasons that I've been given by religious clerics, including an Ayatollah in Iran, is because of the Shia rule of not wanting to see a reflection, which is very different than obviously if you're going into a palace or you're going into another setting.
Obviously, a huge topic that goes back to Neoplatonism and so on, and Ishraqiyya,
Right.
but a rather specific question. I'm really interested in this juncture. And now, most of like Sayyida Zainab was built a few years ago at least, they redecorated, but one has to assume that in some of the bigger shrines, this mirror work, this Aineh-Kari, has replaced an earlier mosaic dome.
Right.
The question is why? And why does this take place at the end of the Safavids and the beginning of the Qajar? Is it a political difference? Does it have theological implication?
Right.
Is it related to usuli akhbari? Is it related to the rejection of philosophy? So this is a question on which I'm working, but I have no answer.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's a question I'd like, obviously, an answer to, as well. About a month ago, I was sent 8 articles from Tehran by an Iranian colleague of mine, which seemed to be kind of the 8 existent articles outside of, the 3 articles in English that exist on the subject. And I've just started to translate those, so I only had time to translate 2 before this conference. So, inshallah, I'll find the answer, right? Thank you.
Well, I think we're going to have to end now because we're running slow, but thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Please let's have a hand.